Welcome to today's presentation. Today, we're going to explore the famous play by T.S. Eliot, Murder in the Cathedral. This work was written in June 1935, specifically for the Canterbury Festival. It centers around the dramatic and tragic story of Thomas Becket, who is one of the most revered saints in England. He also served as the Archbishop of Canterbury from 1162 to 1170, a period marked by significant religious and political conflict. The play vividly depicts the events leading up to his assassination, which was a turning point in English history. It's important to note that the play had its first performance on June 15, 1935, right in the chapter house of Canterbury Cathedral, making it quite a historic premiere. Throughout this presentation, we'll see how Eliot's work explores themes like faith, power, and martyrdom, connecting deeply to the historical and spiritual context of Thomas Becket's story. This place was about 50 yards from the spot where Thomas Becket was originally killed in 1170. Now, for historical accuracy, T.S. Eliot based his play on eyewitness accounts from nearly a year after the event, when those who had witnessed the murder recorded their versions of what happened at the cathedral. It's fascinating because it grounds the play in real testimonies, giving us a deeper connection to the historical event. Now, let's move on to the characters in the play. I want to give you a quick overview of who's who, so you can better understand their roles and significance. First, we have the chorus of women of Canterbury. They represent the community's voice and emotional response to the tragedy. Then, there are the three prayers of the cathedral, which serve as a spiritual and reflective element throughout the play. We also have a messenger, who often brings news or important updates. Archbishop Thomas Becket himself is central, of course. His moral and spiritual dilemmas drive much of the story. Next, there are the four tempters, who symbolize temptation and doubt, challenging Becket's resolve. Then, four knights. These are the ones who ultimately carry out the murder, making their role crucial in understanding the play's tension. Lastly, we have the attendants, representing the wider community and those who are present or affected by the events. By understanding these characters, we can better appreciate the play's exploration of faith, loyalty, and moral conflict, themes that resonate deeply with the overall message of the presentation. Now, let's take a look at the summary of the play Murder in the Cathedral. The play is divided into two main parts, which helps to structure the story and build tension. Between these two parts, there is an interlude that serves as a pause and a reflective moment. In the first part, the action unfolds on December 2nd, 1170, at Archbishop Thomas Becket's hall. This is where we see the initial conflicts and the rising tension surrounding Becket's stance and his position. Then, the interlude comes into play. It's a Christmas sermon that Thomas Becket delivers to the people of Canterbury on Christmas morning, December 25th, 1170. This scene is significant because it highlights Becket's spiritual authority and his connection with the community during a sacred time. Connecting these points to the overall theme, we see how the play explores themes of faith, loyalty, and sacrifice. The division of the play into two parts, with the interlude in between, emphasizes the contrast between worldly concerns and spiritual devotion. It's a clever structural choice that deepens our understanding of Becket's character and the moral dilemmas he faces. Now, let's look at the second part of the play, which takes place in the cathedral on December 29th, 1170. The main focus here is on Thomas Becket and his internal struggle. This internal conflict is a central theme throughout the story, highlighting the tension between his spiritual duties and his personal loyalties. In Scene 1, we go back to December 2nd, 1170. We see a chorus of women from Canterbury gathered near the cathedral, and their voices reflect a sense of fear. They sense that something terrible is about to happen with Becket's return from exile. Becket had been in exile in France for 7 years, and now he's coming back to England. His return is significant because it marks a turning point in his relationship with the king and the church, and it's surrounded by a lot of emotional and political tension. This scene sets the tone for the upcoming events, emphasizing the anxiety and uncertainty that fill the air as Becket re-enters his homeland after years of separation. It's a powerful reminder of how personal and political conflicts intertwine in this story, and how they reflect larger themes of loyalty, faith, and power. He was very kind to people, yet the chorus of women feels that his return to England is going to be a disaster. The disagreement with his friend and King Henry II had led to Becket's exile. Now, earlier, as a chancellor, Becket was on the king's side. But when he was made archbishop by King Henry II, he made it clear that his loyalty was first to God, and only then to the king. This shift in loyalty caused disagreements between the king and Thomas Becket. The priests, meanwhile, are confused about how the state is being run without the guidance of an archbishop. Then, a messenger arrives, bringing news that Becket is returning from France. The priests feel happy, believing that Becket's return will be much better for the people than his absence over the past 7 years. This moment highlights the ongoing tension between loyalty to the crown and faith, which is central to our overall theme of church and state conflicts. Thomas Becket enters the stage with the word peace. He begins by addressing the priests, emphasizing that there are enemies all around him. He's aware of the dangers that come with his return to Canterbury and understands that peace is fragile in such a turbulent time. Soon, 4 tempters approach, each trying to sway him with different temptations. The first tempter tries to remind Becket of a time in the past when he was friends with the king, suggesting that he could regain that influence. But Becket quickly replies that he's come 20 years too late for that, indicating that those days are gone and that he's moved beyond that stage of his life. Next, the second tempter tempts Becket with his previous role as chancellor, a position that brought him political power. It's a reminder of the influence and authority he once held. However, Becket turns away from this temptation too, showing that he's no longer interested in political gain. This scene highlights Becket's internal struggle, his desire for peace, his recognition of the dangers around him, and his resolve to stay true to his new path, even when tempted by the lure of past glory and power. It ties into the larger theme of spiritual integrity and the importance of staying committed to one's principles despite external pressures. Now, moving on to the third tempter. He tries to persuade Becket to team up with the church and the barons against the monarchy. Essentially, he's appealing to Becket's desire for power and influence by suggesting an alliance that could challenge the king. But Becket resists this temptation by firmly stating that he will not betray his king. This highlights his unwavering loyalty and the importance of personal integrity in his character. Next, we come to the fourth tempter, who introduces a different challenge. It's about spiritual pride. He tempts Becket with the idea of achieving martyrdom, which is a very powerful and tempting goal for someone committed to faith. However, this is also the most difficult temptation Becket faces because it touches on his ego and desire for spiritual recognition. Overcoming this pride is crucial, and it's a real test of his humility and true devotion. These temptations connect directly to the overall theme of the presentation, which is about moral strength and integrity in the face of adversity. Becket's ability to resist these temptations shows his deep commitment to his principles and his faith, even when faced with the most alluring shortcuts or ego-boosting ambitions. So, at the end of Part I, Becket truly places himself in God's hands. This moment is a turning point where he fully surrenders, gaining clarity about what he wants to do. It's like he's releasing all doubts and trusting completely in divine guidance. This act of surrender is crucial because it shows his deep commitment and faith. After completing Part I, we see a different side of Becket, a prose interlude where he delivers a Christmas sermon at Canterbury Cathedral. Here, he reflects on the suffering of Jesus' disciples, emphasizing that their sainthood was achieved through great hardship. It's a powerful reminder that true sainthood isn't easy. It involves sacrifice and perseverance. He encourages the crowd to think about sainthood from a divine perspective, urging them to see it as a higher calling, not just a status but a spiritual journey. And then, he hints that this might be the last time he stands before them, a subtle foreshadowing of his martyrdom, suggesting he's prepared for the ultimate sacrifice. This moment ties into the overall theme of faith, sacrifice, and divine purpose that runs through the play. Beckett's actions and words highlight his profound commitment to his spiritual principles, even at great personal risk. Now, in Scene 2, we see the chorus of women starting off with a hopeful, optimistic mood, setting the tone for what's to come. Then, the four knights enter from France, and they have urgent business with King Henry II. They accuse Thomas Becket, who is now the Archbishop of Canterbury, of being ungrateful to the king, since Henry had appointed him to that high position. They even go as far as calling Becket a traitor, which shows how tense and charged the situation is. Becket, however, responds politely, calmly defending himself. He makes an important point here. Loyalty to God doesn't mean disloyalty to the king. It's a key concept because it highlights the conflict between religious duty and royal authority. The knights, not pleased with his defense, become angry and tell Becket to leave England. But Becket reminds them that he has the Pope's permission from Rome, which gives him a sort of divine backing and authority that they cannot dismiss. This scene really underscores the growing tension between church and state, and the difficult position Becket finds himself in, caught between loyalty to the king and his religious duties. It's a pivotal moment that pushes the story forward and ties into our larger theme of the struggle for power and authority during this period. The knights leave, promising to return, which sets a tense and foreboding tone. We know their goal is to murder Archbishop Thomas Becket, highlighting the intense conflict between church and state. The priest tries to persuade Becket to go into hiding for his safety, but Becket refuses. He's prepared for his martyrdom, showing his unwavering commitment to his faith and principles. When the knights come back to the cathedral, the priests act quickly and lock the front doors to keep them out, demonstrating their desire to protect Becket. Becket then instructs someone to open the doors, emphasizing that it's against the church's policy to block anyone from entering. This moment underscores Becket's willingness to stand firm, even risking his life, symbolizing his readiness for martyrdom. Finally, the priests unlock the doors, and the four knights enter, visibly intoxicated, which adds a layer of chaos and foreshadows the tragic event to come. This scene really encapsulates the core theme of sacrifice and conviction that runs throughout Becket's story. So, in this powerful scene, we see how Becket is accused of treason and disobedience, which ultimately leads to a tragic climax. The knights form a circle around Becket at the center and carry out the murder. This act is shocking, but it's also a pivotal moment that prompts a collective mourning. The chorus, along with the priests, laments Becket's death, emphasizing the gravity of the event. Interestingly, the priest interprets Becket's martyrdom as strengthening the church, highlighting how this tragic act is seen by some as a form of spiritual victory. The four knights, however, look directly at the audience and claim they murdered Becket out of loyalty to the king, which raises questions about loyalty, justice, and the conflicts between church and state. The priest dismisses the knights as lost souls, suggesting they are misguided or spiritually lost. Meanwhile, the chorus expresses gratitude to God for revealing a divine pattern through Becket's martyrdom, seeing it as part of a higher plan. They pray for God's mercy and for Christ's guidance, and they honor Thomas Becket, who has now been canonized as Saint Thomas Becket. This scene ties into our overall theme by illustrating how faith, loyalty, and sacrifice intersect, often leading to profound consequences. It reminds us that martyrdom can be viewed as both a tragic loss and a divine act that inspires faith and reflection. This slide doesn't contain enough information. That's why we're moving to the next slide.